Hey everybody, welcome to the Gig Money Podcast. We talk with musicians about the side hustles that they use to fund their musical ambitions. I am Cody.
And I'm Andrew.
And today we have Brad from Mozatronic, Part 2. Tell us a little bit more about some of your past side hustles.
Oh boy. So I worked in low voltage. I did like a lot of internet, telephone service, things like that. And I moved to Anchorage, Alaska. Was doing pretty good up there. Got transferred up there. And then the economy totally took a crash. This is about 15 years ago or so. Just took a dump. And I got I got laid off. And then they rehired me and transferred me to Houston, Texas. And over a course of a couple of years, that's about 2 years, that started to go under the company. Bad. So I switched gears entirely about 12 years ago to the industry I'm in right now. But before all that, I had the greatest combination of anything. So I've already told you guys a little bit, but I worked as a radio disc jockey from about 95, 96 to about 2004, somewhere around there. So it was like the golden age of nu metal.
The good stuff.
Yeah, I was like 6 or 7 years at radio. But I also worked at a strip club at the same time. They overlapped for about 3 years exactly the same time. So literally all my friends were rock stars, strippers, and drug dealers for about 3 years.
Sounds terrible.
It was a pretty good time. It was horrible, Andrew. It was horrible.
It's horrible.
It was horrible. But so I took a lot of advantage of that. So not of the strippers, but of the radio thing.
Thanks for clarifying.
I traveled all over the place to basically interview bands, see shows. I didn't pay for a show for almost a decade. But that was probably my best side hustle I've ever had. Because one was still involved with music. Because I was actually not only an on-air personality, but I was one of the music directors as well. So I had a direct influence on what we played. And then obviously the strip club, because it's a strip club. Which actually, if you ever worked in one, it's miserable to work in one. Don't ever do it. I don't recommend it. But it prepared me for the world. I was pretty naive. I'm from Montana. I mean, I don't really see the stuff. So I was up there at the time. But that was my best side hustle, hands down. Got the most stories.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And it sounds like it was a really interesting time in your life, and you met a whole bunch of really cool bands coming out at that time.
I've met a lot. Pretty much anybody that you could name that was out at that time, I've probably met or have a story on.
Well,
test me.
I have to ask.
Yeah.
Of the interviews that you did with these various different bands, which band was the most unhinged, the craziest?
Okay. That would hands down be Mudvayne.
Oh.
So when I interviewed them, it was about a week before LD50 came out.
Okay.
Oh. They were on tour with, who was it again? I don't remember. Oh, System of a Down, Mudvayne, and there was some other bands too. But the bass player, I'm sitting backstage with them, and he starts throwing stars at my head, like to see like a knife board to see if they could miss me. Thankfully, he did miss me every time. He threw 3 times. But they were probably the most unhinged because they were still young and didn't quite understand that it was a business at the time. But yeah, they were nuts.
That's crazy.
Mainly the bass player. Ninjas.
What was that?
Practicing to become ninjas.
Just the bass player. I mean, I'll be honest, that he was the one that was like, woohoo. The guitarist was very odd, but not like in an unhinged way, just an odd person, if that makes sense. I've met a lot of those, but he was one of them, one of the bigger ones.
I have a story about the bass player from Mudvayne, actually.
Do you? Did he throw throwing stars at your head too?
No. I never actually met him. However, there's another famous band out there called Korn. And Korn, at one point in time, Fieldy, I guess he had a kid and wasn't going to go on tour with them. So they hired the bass player from Mudvayne And if you watch the video that he put out there showing, they talk to him about, how he's excited about be playing with Korn and all this stuff. And he's like, in my other band, we start playing and then it's like chaos on the stage and stuff like that. And he says, so when they first started and everybody came out, nobody really told him kind of like what they do. So like everybody comes out and he just gets on stage, and as soon as the first song comes on, he's going crazy, and he goes over and he's like playing next to Monkey and like getting over by Jonathan Davis and all this kind of stuff. And they're all looking at him like, the hell are you doing? Like, get back in your spot. There's literally a spotlight where each one of them stands, and this guy's running all around the stage like some kind of a weirdo. And he's like, yeah, I learned really quick that that's not how Korn works.
That's funny.
Chill out, man. We're a jazz band.
Right.
You gotta cool it.
How dare you want to put some metal in?
Get back in line, man.
It's funny to me as well because a previous band that I was in went on tour with Hell Yeah, and just hanging out with Chad Gray backstage, she was definitely not crazy. Granted, this was 15 plus years after you might have conducted that interview, but I remember there was one time in Pennsylvania that we were hanging out backstage, and it was early in the tour. I think it was like the third show in, and we were just downstairs hanging out. I was cutting the sleeves off a shirt because that's what you do when you're on tour.
As
you
bands
get shirts,
do.
and as bands do, as we say. But we were just down there, and he said something. We were in the kind of general room backstage and just hanging out, and he said something, and I countered him with some sort of really cheesy dad joke based on what he said, and I can't remember what it is. Someday I'll remember what I actually said, but I kind of reflected on what he was saying in a really cheesy way, and he just stared at me for a second, and he giggled, and then he just left. And I was like, oh man, I fucked up the whole tour for this opening band that I'm in,
ruined.
Like he's going to look at us all crazy for the rest of the tour because I messed it up. Just by
Chad
being cheesy.
Chad actually wasn't so bad. He did like legal ID for me for radio and everything. He wasn't so bad. He's the one that stopped the bass player from throwing stars on my head. So Chad, thank you, buddy.
Yeah. Excellent. He's a good dude for sure. And
I just don't understand how that would be a thing. You walk in to talk to somebody and they start throwing Chinese stars at you. How does that happen? Like,
I'll be honest, I wasn't there for them. I was there for System of a Down.
Of course, yeah.
So I was talking to those guys, and then I kind of bonded with. I want to say it was like the guitarist brother or something. He was like a roadie for him. He ended up being in another band after that. Like I want to say it was Down. I think he was in that afterwards.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think I know who you're talking about.
But security was trying to kick me out from backstage because they didn't have an official pass. And he's like, he's with me, motherfucker. And just like, it was awesome. We bonded, man. We had a great time.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. So getting throwing stars chucked at your head and having
I've had a lot of experiences like that, man. Here, I'll give you another one. If you don't mind, I'll tell you another funny story.
Absolutely.
So I was at Ozfest. This was 2000, I believe. And I was sitting backstage. I can't remember who was playing at the time, but it was us back. There was this kid with his mom. The kid was maybe 12 years old. And he's got a handful of paper with signatures on it from different people that he's grabbed. And he's trying to get Morgan from Kitty's attention. And she's backstage maybe 50 feet from me talking to some guy. So I start talking to the kid, and I'm like, you know what, man, you want me to see if I can help you out? And I hadn't talked to Morgan yet. I hadn't met her. And he's like, yeah, it'd be awesome. So I walk over, and I'm like, hey, excuse me, guys. I'm sorry for interrupting. And the guy stops, looks me dead in the eye, and he says, no, I was just trying to propose. Yep, silence like that. And then Morgan just started laughing. She goes, he's fucking with you, man. He starts laughing. It was just a big joke. I told him what I was there for. She looked at the kid, waved, signed something. I brought it back to him. But yeah, that was a pretty funny story because I was like, oh shit.
Yeah. You're like, I'm a dick. Oh,
I'm a dick.
What did I do this for?
Mm-hmm.
Next time, get on a knee, loser.
I believed it 100%, man. 100%. He sold it. He sold it hard.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, definitely. So, another thing that I'm curious about is during your tenure, what was the most laid back, least crazy band that you had the
That's a
opportunity to
tough one.
interview?
So do you mean like just super chill, like almost not even there? Or do you mean like the nicest guys? Because there's a couple of them. So I'll talk about chill. Pretty much every British band I've met. So Apartment 26, Pitch Shifter, super chill.
Oasis?
Super chill. I haven't met Oasis because they suck.
Right.
And I don't listen to Oasis.
They're probably not chill at all.
So I was backstage and I saw the guys from Pitch Shifter and they told me to come see them later. When I was backstage, it was like it's some meet and greet thing, and like, yeah, come see us backstage. So they were all sitting down having lunch, and I asked, hey, you guys said, yeah, have a seat. And I'm like, hoping not disturbing you. Like, no, man, we're having lunch. Let's have a good time. And they were just super chill. You guys know who Apartment 26 is, by the way? Have you heard that?
I've heard of them.
The lead singer is this.
Sure.
Pitch Shifter's the shit. That's why you've heard of them. No, Apartment 26, they didn't really go a long ways, but the lead singer is the son of Geezer Butler.
Oh, okay. Yep.
So
that's why I've heard of them.
Yeah. The nicest guys, I have two. One, Incubus. Hands down, the nicest guys you will ever meet.
So they're not megalomaniacs.
No, I've met them 4 times. The first time they were fantastic. Matter of fact, Mike still owes me $20 for beer because they didn't have any. They were doing they were buy on when Science had just come out with 311 and Sugar Ray. So that was that one. And then the next time I saw them, they remembered who I was. The next time I saw them, they remembered who I was. Wow. 4th time, they didn't remember who I was. And this was over a course of about 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
And believe it or not, the next nicest guys, Slipknot.
I believe it.
No, they're super cool.
It kind of depends on the era too, because it's my understanding that there was a certain point in time where they were going through a lot of that growing process and figuring out how to do it, and still.
Well, I met him when their debut album came out, about a month into it at Ozfest, and then again when they were on tour with System of a Down and them, and God, I can't remember the other ones where they were. There's been so many concerts, but they remembered me a year later, and their album had just gone platinum. Nice. But they were just, especially Sean Clown. Oh yeah, he's super cool. Corey has really changed a lot since then. But when I met Corey, I didn't meet him the first time at Ozfest. I met like Joey and Paul and a bunch of the other guys, but I didn't meet Corey. But I met Corey the second time, and I wouldn't have even recognized who he was if I would have met him a year before without his mask on. So I kid you not, I'm not even lying. He had a purple afro. He had sunglasses on. One side was a rectangle that was like a tan, and the other side was like an oval that was purple. And he's standing there, and he's talking to Clown and I, and my friend that was with us. And there was these 2 girls. This was after the show backstage. And these girls are like talking to him, trying to talk his ear off, because he's Corey from Slipknot. And the tour manager's like, hey, Corey, man, you got to get in the shower, man. We got to get on the road. So he looks at these girls, and he's like, aren't you guys staying in the hotel across the street from us? And they're like, yeah. He goes, well, that means we could probably take a shower together then, right? And they're like, yeah. And just boom, gone. And I looked over at Sean, and I'm like, what the hell, dude? He just smiled and was like, rock stars, dude. Rock stars.
Rock stars.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
That's one guy that I want to meet is Corey Taylor.
I would like to meet him now. I don't know if I would have liked him then. He seems to have a really good show. Yeah.
There's been a whole lot of growth there. You can kind of tell. And, kind of has to be that way if you're Corey Taylor, If you're the man and you want to keep doing what you're doing, you got to learn some hard lessons and change your ways over and over.
Mad respect for that guy. He's a damn good musician.
Absolutely.
Talking about Oasis.
Oh, God, do we have to? No, go ahead, man.
I had a friend who was like, obsessed with them. And I told him, I was like, dude, you got to stop this obsession with Oasis. And he was like, I said, maybe.
Oh, geez.
I'm like, no, definitely not. Maybe.
They actually, when they got signed, when they did their contract, do you know where they signed it?
No.
On the bottom, fool.
Got him.
Wow. I did not see that coming. Good job.
You're welcome.
Brad.
You're welcome, Andrew.
You Andrew joked Andrew. That doesn't
Yeah,
happen very
that's
often.
not very often. That doesn't happen very often, no.
I'm glad.
Yeah, it's like, I was dating this girl one time and she was like, hey, your obsession with the monkeys is crazy. And I was like, I thought she was, not being serious. Then I saw her face.
Now you're a believer?
Now he's a believer. Wow.
Okay, sorry. Continue.
Andrew,
Let's
problem.
keep talking about
Oasis
bands.
and the Monkeys worked into the podcast. You have anybody more recent, Andrew?
No. Back when I hung out with Karen Carpenter, people don't even know who that is.
I do, but
Yeah. The Carpenters.
yeah.
Just
You're
like
probably
Jesus.
too young for that, Cody.
Oh, no, I'm
know
familiar
Karen
with the
Carpenter?
Carpenters, but she was...
Okay.
Okay, so here's the thing. There's, certain different times like questions pop up in social media, like who's the best drummer who is also a singer? And I click on this link.
Oh, isn't that crazy?
I expect to see some of my favorites, like Brandon Saller from Atreyu. But, recently he's moved to just singer position, the frontman position. I didn't see him at all. I saw Karen Carpenter.
She threw down too, didn't she?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, she was throwing down.
They're not wrong. It wasn't what I was expecting. I was like, oh man, I'm in a group for people that are a little bit older than myself.
Yeah, I'm not a fan, but when I saw that video recently too, and I was like, holy crap, I had no idea.
Nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's important to know that kind of musical history and all
Speaking
the
of
people
drummers,
yes.
I'm sorry, speaking of drummers, and you said you're a fan of Pitch Shifter, hands down the best drummer I've ever seen. Hands down when you see him live.
Hands down. And you saw Joey Jordison in his heyday.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
I mean, that's awesome.
On the same tour.
On the
Like at Ozfest the same year. Yeah. Joey's awesome. But holy crap. Things I thought were samples were him playing live.
Wow.
Like some of the weird rhythms, and that's him playing. Yeah, it was I was blown away.
That's interesting because you mentioned Fear Factory. Right?
I met them too, yeah.
And like the drummer is literally a machine.
Mm-hmm. He's pretty damn good.
Yeah, but okay, cool. That's really interesting to know. I'll have to.
By the way, Bert's kind of a dick.
I've heard that before.
Yeah, I've met him twice. He's kind of a dick. He's one of the few dicks I've met.
I met Dino at NAMM a couple years back, and he was really cool. But it was one of those situations where at first I didn't really recognize him until he was holding a guitar. I'm like, holy shit, it's him.
That's Dino. Yeah. Dino was pretty quiet. Every time I met him, he was very quiet, very reserved.
Kind of a very withdrawn kind of guy, but an absolute stellar musician.
So let me ask you a question, Cody, and then I'll bounce one back to you. In your musical experiences with the different bands and stuff and the things you've had, what's something that's really struck to you that's something special, something you'll always remember that's unique?
I think you really can see, especially from the perspective of being backstage, the truly professional musicians that are also in it for the right reasons. And you can see the guys who are not in it for the right reasons. And the crowd reaction, a lot of the times, is very, very similar. Like some people don't really, really pick up on it. And that was always really interesting to me because they say, don't meet your heroes.
Yeah.
So being on tour with a band like Atreyu, and, as I said, Brandon Saller was one of my favorite drummer, vocalists, just musicians of all time. It was a little nerve-wracking being on the same tour with him and wondering, like, is he going to be an asshole? No. we actually had Thanksgiving dinner with them in Baltimore. And
that's awesome.
They invited us to this Airbnb that they had rented out for Thanksgiving dinner. And, you know, they had the turkey, the fixings. Those guys love, you know, nice bottle of wine. That's their thing. They're not like party guys, but they're very chill guys. And Memphis Mayfire was also there at the Thanksgiving, and it was the coolest thing. We were just all hanging out, talking. You know, I got to talk with Porter from Atreyu, the bass player, who's also taken over the lead with the screaming vocals these days. And man, that guy is super talented, super crazy talented. And he did all of the graphic design for all of their, you know, tour posters, their merch, and the new logo design, stuff like that. He did all of that. He did music videos with them and for other people as well. And just hanging with these guys and talking with them about side hustles. You know,
that's awesome.
That was like the coolest thing. And I think about that a lot when we're doing the podcast, just meeting these guys who are even on, you know, a level like that and still doing side hustles to make ends meet. The screamer for Atreyu at the time, Alex, was doing tattoos, and he would do them before the show in the green room. So somebody booked time with him to do a tattoo. It would also be kind of like a VIP backstage experience. And that was really cool. He's super talented tattoo artist on top of everything else, being a very energetic, you know, lead man and jumping off of everything on stage and off stage and just going crazy. But there was one time where I was just hanging out with him backstage also in Pennsylvania, different place in Pennsylvania, but I guess that's where all of the stuff happens for me. I had a cyst growing on my neck. You can kind of see the scar right here. I had it removed, but it was benign. It wasn't really a big problem. It was just kind of popped up one day, and it was there. And I asked him at the time, "Hey, you got any tattoo clients today?" He's like, "No, nobody really wanted to do it here. So, you know, I'm just taking the day off." I'm like, "Well, if you're interested, I got a tattoo for you to do. I want a smiley face on my cyst." And he's like, "I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole." I'm like, "All right,
my little brother." Don't look at my little brother.
Yeah, my twin, my evil twin growing on my neck here. Just tattoo a smiley face, and when I get it removed, they can, you know, cut the incision right along the smile and make it a joke.
That's funny.
I don't know. It was interesting. He was not about it, and I was just joking with him. I can only imagine if he had actually agreed to it, that probably would have been pretty bad. All right, so yeah, that's my disgusting story about my tattoo idea without Atreyu. So you said you had something to counter with. Yeah.
So I've had a lot of really cool experiences from being on stage with Disturbed, standing right next to the drummer at Ozfest with 35,000 people, and dancing with 3 girls from Kitty. But that's not my most memorable. I have a lot. I'm going to give you the short one. Actually, I'm going to they're both the same. I'll give you 2. So the 4th time I met Incubus, it was on Snowcore. It was Mr. Bungle, Puya, Incubus, System of a Down.
Oh, Puya. Oh, man.
Puya was great. I've hung out with them guys, too. They're good.
I'm sitting into them a while back, but yeah.
I'm sitting in a bar across the street from the event center, and I have Shavo and John from System of a Down with me. I have 2 strippers and a friend that are also there. We drove like 4 hours to go there. And they're having like wings and beer with us, right? Having a good time. But I haven't been able to get in touch with the tour manager for Incubus. But I knew they were coming to this location. My camera died again, but I will continue with my story.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. So, but I knew they were coming to this place because a radio station was going to be interviewing them. This was right about the time Pardon Me was released. So they come into the bar, and there's like a line of radio people from that city to meet and greet them. And I stood up and I'm like, "Hey, Brandon." And before they could even see him and talk to him, he's like, "What's up, man?" And they all came over and they sat down at the table next to me, right? So I have all the guys from Incubus. I got 2 of the guys from Snow Down, and we're like right there, like ass to cheek close, right? Having a good time, hanging out, just bullshitting. I gave them some photos from the previous time. They put them in their DVD that they released later. But Pardon Me came on the radio as they were sitting there. And they air guitared it on the table. The DJ was like spinning plates. And Jose, the drummer, was like tapping on the edge of the table with his silverware. It was one of the coolest, most surreal things, just sitting there watching a band that I idolized air guitar their own song at a bar. That was cool. Number 2, cool. Lamb of God. Great memory. It'll never happen again. So this was in Spokane, Washington. It was 5.0. 18 Visions, Lamb of God, and Mushroom Head. And it was at a bar kind of like Trees. So wasn't like a big venue, a small venue. And about 80% of the people that bought tickets were under the age of 21, and it was a 21 and up show. So they were denied at the door. So this was a sold out show, and there was only about 60 people there. So I had been hanging out with Lamb of God pretty much the whole time. And speaking of side hustles, I had probably a 45-minute conversation with the lead guitarist for Lamb of God. When he's not doing the band, he's a 5-star chef. And he was explaining to me how you reduce duck fat from a duck for about 45 minutes. But something you didn't know. But anyways, one of the guys from Mushroom Head walked up to Randy before the show. He's like, man, you got to do what you did in Chicago. He's like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, man, do what you did in Chicago. So I don't know what's going on, you know? So Lamb of God takes the stage. And all the guys at Mushroom Head are in the bar without their masks. No one knows who the hell they are. This was when they were pretty big, Solitaire, Unraveling, and everything. And Randy comes up the stage, and I shit you not, he's like, hello, everybody, with Lamb of God from Germany. They did the entire set in German accents. Mushroom Head was right there against the edge of the stage, just like screaming the whole time. It was the greatest thing. Every time he addressed the crowd, it was with the German accent. Everything they did, German accents for the entire show.
Oh, that's excellent.
Yeah, it's a good story, huh?
Yeah, definitely. Story. With small crowds, the more intimate events, this is kind of a interesting situation because a lot of people, it was a sold out show, like you said, and people.
No one knew who Lamb of God was at the time. This was a long time ago. Nice. Everybody knew who Mushroom Head was, but no one knew who they were.
And they just introduced themselves as German. And that reminds me of a tour that I did, a previous band, where in every single place, our singer went on stage wearing a mullet.
Wearing what?
Wearing a mullet.
Oh, awesome.
And, we were just playing and rocking out, and people were like vibing with it in all of these different towns. And then halfway through, he would say something, he would take it off and he would toss it to the person, right up front, whoever's right there. And it would just blow everybody away. Like, he doesn't actually have a mullet?
Mullet hat.
Crazy.
How many did
and then
you
they
bring
get
with
that
you?
much more into it. We had one for every single show and a couple of extras. And I still have one.
Yeah.
I still have one, and I used it in a music video that I did recently. So, yeah, that's the story of the mullet.
You got to have fun. If you're not having fun, it's not worth it. As soon as you quit having fun, no matter what your job is, man, you don't do it anymore. So that's an awesome story. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And definitely you got to know how to enjoy yourself on tour, because it can get pretty rough. It can get pretty difficult and bleak. And, musicians are kind of one of the groups that you suffer the most from depression and stuff like that.
Musicians and comedians.
We've talked about that a lot.
I've had friends that, have been out on tour, kind of like you, with supporting national acts and stuff. And they've told me some of the, all we had was butter sandwiches for 4 days, yeah. So, hey, for anybody watching this, if you're at a show, buy some merch, because that's how the band's eating the next day and how they're paying for their gas. So, yeah. This is something that's always bothered me, actually, guys. So we've all been in the industry for a while. One of the things that I always did whenever I went to a show is I was always there early so I could see the opening act. I couldn't tell you how many opening acts I saw that are freaking enormous today. For you people out there, every band you like was that opening act at some point.
They started somewhere.
So don't turn, with the exception of like Linkin Park that played one show and then were huge.
Yeah.
You know, it really doesn't happen other than that. But I've seen Incubus when they were paying to go on tour. You know, I've seen tons that you just have to go early. You have to see them. I've seen bands that never went anywhere like Jawbox that were amazing live. Amazing when they opened up for Stone Temple Pilots. But you just you do it. Go out, stay there, get early, stay late. I guarantee you're going to hear something you like.
We've talked about
off
this.
My soapbox.
Yeah, we've talked about this before about how we've gone to some headlining acts, you know, to go see the headliner. Mm-hmm. Of course, you show up early and you see somebody who has actually better than the headliner. You become a fan for life, of course. But it's like, if you're not giving yourself, you're paying for a ticket, right? Or you're paying for your admission to get in there. Why not enjoy the entire thing? Because you don't know what's going to happen. It's going to could be really amazing, and it could not be. But what are you out? You still have the ticket. You know.
Well, most of those beginning bands that are coming in, they have, I don't want to say they have more energy, but they just have more determination to be heard. You know, like I saw a show. It was a band called Blindside. They're a Swedish band, but they were amazing live. One of the best live performances I've ever seen. And they were the opening act. They were incredible. Like kick flips while the guy was playing guitar. It was incredible. I don't even know how they did it.
Talking about.
But yeah, you gotta check stuff like that, like Puya for Cody. Yeah. I mean, people don't know who Puya is. Man, dude, I've seen him with full horn sections and I've seen him just with like the 5 guys. They're amazing. But if you don't get out there, you're never going to know.
Yep. The opening.
Yeah, you might find some crappy ones, but exactly.
Yeah. You're definitely bound to run into some bands that don't become your favorites, but
it's art.
Always the
That's
chance.
Okay. It's art. That's okay. Yeah.
So I got a question: is who was the most disrespectful band that you ever met? Maybe that's something we should talk about. But
no, I'll do it. Absolutely, I'll do it 100%. So I was blessed because I only met a couple assholes, and that's unusual.
They're out there.
They're out there, but maybe they treated me different because I was in media. I don't know. But even in my professional side, when I've met, you know, these people, you know, be it some national act that I've opened up for or something, they've always been really cool. The biggest one, John from System of a Down. Now, here's the thing. He was super cool to me. Super cool. We met him before the show. Like I said, I had my friend with me and I had 2 strippers with me. We met him before the show. He is an avid comic book collector. So he asked if one of the girls lived there in that town. So he asked if we could bring him around to different comic book stores to see if they had anything that he wanted. So we're like, absolutely, you know. And then he hung out with us and had the beers when Incubus came in and all that. We're having a good time. Then he calls one of the dancers outside and talks to her for a little bit. And he leaves because he's got to go get prepared and stuff. And she comes back in and she's like, hey, Brad, I got to talk to you. So while he was outside, he gave her 3 passes to go backstage. And told her that he didn't like our other friend, thought he was kind of a nerd, and didn't want to see him backstage. Which is kind of bullshit when you're sitting there with 2 dancers and me. And so me and one of the dancers went, and then the other guys went and did something else. Like, fuck that guy. But that was kind of the douchey bag moment that I ran into. It's kind of a douchebag move. Yeah.
Yeah. It happens at local events too. I mean, we know people here locally, or, you know, I'm sure Cody knows people locally in Texas, but we've run into a lot of people where you're just like, they've got this ego. It's like clear up here. And you're like, dude, you're nothing. Like, what do you, Is it all just like some kind of a big game to you or
You're
something?
just a normal dude, man.
Yeah. It's like you're not that special. I'm sorry.
No, you gotta.
That's up.
You gotta, as a musician, it's my opinion that you should go into every situation being humble, because you never know. That's what really turns people into fans, you know. And we talk about this a lot, but if I wasn't, you know, a humble musician, I can't say I'm like always been a humble musician, you know, but who can? You try and keep your ego in check.
Well, I
But
mean, you got to take into account. Go ahead.
Sorry, but if I wasn't the kind of person who wasn't willing to talk and hang out with people regardless of what was going on, and you know, if I was that kind of selective ego person, then I wouldn't have met my wife. And
well, you got to look at these people. Yeah. I mean, when you get to a certain level, everybody recognizes you, and you can't do anything or go anywhere without being harassed.
Hounded. Yeah.
Now, that's the price to pay for a celebrity. I mean, if you don't want to be rich and famous, you have to accept that. Right. There's been 2 instances in my life where I met a person who was very, very famous at the time, and I treated him like a normal person. Didn't call out that I knew who they were. We had long conversations, a good experience. They were comfortable. I was comfortable. One was Andy McDowell way back in the day when she was popular. Her kid was playing a crane machine at a Safeway, and I started talking to the kid, making sure, because I didn't see a parent around. And my ex-wife and I like kind of watched over the kid and like gave her $1 to play the crane machine. And Andy McDowell came and like, hold on, that was her daughter. And then the other one was, believe it or not, Weird Al. And I worked at a county fair, and one of the things we had were velvet paintings. And he was going through all the Velvet Elvises, saying, nope, got it. True story. I swear. True story.
Wow.
But there was a band called Candiria that I was, if you like Puya, you would like Candiria.
Yes.
They're like metal and then jazz. So like snap like that, like Puya is with the Latin music. But I was hanging out with them on a Biohazard's bus, and we were talking, and I think it was a bass player. I can't remember his name, but he was talking about how much he enjoyed hanging out with us. But as more fame happens and things happen, it's harder and harder to get access. That even though he would want to hang out with us again, it might be hard for us or for a person to even inform them that you're there. And that's another thing you have to think about with celebrities. You're going to have someone else handle most things because you just can't. So you're going to have a bad day. There's that famous story of someone coming out of Tom Cruise when he was young, coming out of his tour bus, and someone taking a picture, and he walks over and he politely asks to see the camera, and they rip the film out and says, people pay me for photos. I mean, that was a long time ago, like risky business stuff, but you're going to have a bad day, and people are going to remember that bad day over the good ones. So like you said, you have to be humble and you have to accept it.
Yeah. And I can't speak to, you know, that level and the difficulty that comes along with trying to keep your ego in check when every single portion of your day is filled with that, you know, that kind of adoration. So, you know, I can't speak to it. I can't say that, you know,
I
it's
can't
an
either.
easy thing to be humble, but it's something that really makes a huge difference if you want people to respect you and your music, your craft, whatever. It's just, you know, being a person.
You ever seen the show Deadliest Catch? So back in the day, there was one of the ships called the Time Bandit. And there was a guy named Jonathan Hillstrand that was the captain of the Time Bandit on Deadliest Catch. Well, when I lived in Alaska, I ran into him in Homer, Alaska at this bar. And couldn't find out he had a mutual friend of mine. So we talked for a while. I called up his mutual friend. They hadn't spoken in like 12 years. And so we became like, not buddies, but we became drinking buddies that night. Every person that came up to him, every one of them, and there was a lot, he took the time to talk to him, go outside where the lighting was better to get a photo, to spend some time and connect with them. Every one of them. And that's what you need to do.
Yeah.
Got to take the time.
I had a moment I had a moment where I actually kind of felt like a rock star one time. And
let me hear it.
Yeah. So I was going to this concert. It was a Chevelle concert. And I had kind of shown up late. I got there. I had been working throughout the day, so I didn't have an excuse, or I did have an excuse where I couldn't make it to be there any earlier than I was. And there were all these people there, and Cody among them, who were there, and I was excited to go see everybody. And I'm standing out with the bouncer, right? And the bouncer's like, hey, or not the bouncer, it's the security person. Is like, empty your pockets, show me what you got in them, right? And so I show him all the stuff that I got in them. And I always carried a tiny marker because you never know, when you're going to need a tiny marker. And the guy looks at me and he goes, you can't bring that in with you. And I'm like, it's a tiny marker. Like what could happen with it? And it's like, well, it could have drugs in it. And I'm like, okay, you can smell it. Wait, that's probably not a good idea. Never smell a marker. But yeah, I was like, he's like, why do you have a marker? And I was like, because you never know. And I was like, I'm a local rock star. Maybe somebody wants my signature sometime. And at that point in time, a couple of our mutual friends saw me and started yelling at me, Andrew, hey, dude, what's up? Hey, man.
Oh, that's awesome.
For a while. And the bouncer was like, okay, you're legit. Let's go. And I was like, I'm a rock star.
Got to bring in your mini marker.
One time. That was.
So are you a musician, Andrew?
Yeah.
Or just a fan musician? Okay.
Yeah. I have.
Andrew is a well-versed musician. He's his music is up on Spotify. And yeah, we'll send you some links so you can
please do
out the stuff because a lot of that Andrew and I worked on together. So yeah.
Yep.
But when you guys want to collaborate and add a little bit of orchestral stuff to it, let me know. I would love to.
Ooh, yeah, let's do that. Let's link up.
I think it's a plan. I would love to. I would love to.
Awesome. Cool. So along the note of trying to be humble and everything like that, do you have any other advice for aspiring musicians?
I said at the very beginning, if people are still here, that art in any aspect, any type of creativity is subjective. So do not try to go into something to please everybody. You might have, let's say you have 10 friends. Seven of them might really like your stuff. The other 3 are going to hate it. Or it could be vice versa. It doesn't matter. You, be true to yourself. The other thing is you guys, I'm probably sure both learned this the hard way. Be patient. Just because you have a song that you really like doesn't mean it sounds good when you recorded it on your phone.
Right.
And then you release it to everybody. Don't do that stuff. Reserve yourself, pull it back, share with some great friends, but don't release stuff that's not ready to be released for people to listen to because it will be a stigma that'll stick with you. And we made a joke early on too about the car test. That shit is real.
Yeah.
If you do some production stuff and listen to it, great. Listen to it multiple ways. Headphones, no headphones, different system. Get in your car, check it out. I guarantee you it's not going to be right. Go back and fix it. But that's it, man. Really, just don't give in to the hate because there is so much love and there's so much hate in this industry. People are armchair quarterbacks. They're gonna, hate you because you don't hate them. It's awful, and we need to legit come together as musicians. Like if I go to a show, for example, like one of my favorite all-time bands, I got to open up for about a year ago. I'd never seen them live, never got to anything, and I got an offer to open up for them. So a band called Flaw. I love Flaw.
Oh, Flaw's amazing.
Yeah, so I played with them twice in 1 year because of it. They liked us too, so that was great. But bring treats. Don't be weird, but bring stuff because these guys are on the road. Bring stuff like jerky, stuff that's non-perishable. Nothing you need a can opener for, not a bunch of candy bars, but stuff that's, like nuts, high protein, things that they can keep with them. And I guarantee they will remember you for it.
I'm sure a lot of people probably remember you for showing up to shows with 2 strippers.
I'm sure they did. My video stopped again, but that's okay. I got a dumb look on my face. It's all good. But, it's actually David Draymond. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Disturbed. Lead singer Disturbed.
Yes.
That guy is one of the oddest people you will ever meet. But one of the weird things about David is how he laughs. So he'll be talking to you, and then he will just break out in hysterical, high-pitched laughter and then stop immediately. It's just like, what shocked me about this is you talked about the strippers. So I told him I worked in a strip club and we played some of the music there. He's like, oh, I would love to see that sometime. That's just how he is. He's just a weird dude. I wish you could have saw that in video. It was excellent. It was epic.
All right. Well, Brad, thank you so much for being our guest on today. And we really appreciate the insight that you've shared with us. And we'll definitely keep an eye out for the movie you have coming out. So, yeah, I'll share some links to that when those are available.
I appreciate you guys very much for having me on. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We appreciate you being on. And, that being said, everybody, please make sure to like, rate, and review the podcast so that we can get in front of as many people as possible. It really, really helps us out and pushes the algorithm. So continue doing that. So until next time, I'm Cody.
And I'm Andrew.
See you guys.